Okay, I think so.
Hi, everybody. We had a little issue to start the webinar, but I think we're good now. So we started a minute late, sorry about that. I see all the people coming in right now. So yeah, we will start the live event in a second. I just want to ask everybody in the webinar if you can see us all right, if you can hear me speaking correctly, just to make sure that technically everything works. And also if the screen is being shared, if you can see my screen with basically a presentation with the title of the webinar. If you can just put it in the chat. There's in Zoom, there is this chat button that you can click where you can just tell us if everything is working correctly. Trina says, all good. Thank you, Trina. So if people can find the chat and confirm on their end that they can see us and hear us, that will be helpful. Yes, thank you. Okay, all good. Yes, it works. Great. Petra, David, thank you. Perfect. Florian, all good. All right. So this seems to work. So yeah, I think we can officially start the event. Thank you all for being here. There is this chat, the Zoom bar that you already discovered with the chat button. There will be plenty of questions at the end of the webinar, so feel free to post your questions, preferably in the button next to the chat button. It's called Q&A. So in the Q&A section of Zoom, you can post your questions, and we will make sure to leave some time at the end of the webinar to answer your questions. This way, you don't have to remember them or something. You just post them in here, and we will make sure to answer as many questions as we can. Questions that are not answered during the webinar, don't worry about it. We might not have time. It's a 1-hour webinar, but we will definitely follow up over email to answer your questions. So with that said, I think we can start the webinar. I would like to welcome you all. My name is Philip Heidbrink. I'm the CEO of Scilife. And I would like to welcome Amanda from Shoebox. So Amanda, if you want to present yourself real quick.
Hi, my name is Amanda Amell. I'm the QA associate at Shoebox Limited. For over the last 15 plus years, I've worked in pharmaceutical wholesaling, medical device distribution, and manufacturing industries with a focus on QMS, or quality management systems, and regulatory compliance. So I really thrive on change in process and product improvements.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And what does Shoebox do exactly?
Right. Shoebox is a manufacturer of an automated iPad audiometer. So we design, develop audiometry products as software as a medical device. We use iOS web technology to replace the bulky, expensive equipment, making it more affordable and accessible to people.
All right, perfect. Thank you for that. So yeah, the structure of the webinar is really three parts to come to it. So we have the main challenges and the continuous improvement framework that Amanda is going to explain. The second part of the webinar is really like a case study in which we're going to discuss how Amanda is managing continuous improvement at Shoebox specifically. So the first part is more theory, and the second part is more practice at Shoebox, right? And then the third part is the Q&A session, so that if you have any questions throughout the webinar, just like I explained in the beginning, use the Zoom bar to post your questions in the Q&A section, and I'll try to go over as many questions as possible. And the questions that are not answered at the end will be answered over email. Okay, so with that, I'll like to start mentioning what are the main challenges that we at Scilife with our customers are encountering when we talk to QA people in medical devices. So what are the main challenges when implementing continuous improvement? One of the main challenges that are typically mentioned is is instilling this quality mindset on all levels throughout the company, right? It's not only the QA department that should be QA or quality minded, but it's everybody within the company, and that's not easy. Sometimes quality is seen as a necessary evil, which is just it requires people to follow up on quality events where on top of their day-to-day work, or which is a pain for them. So they just see it as something additional to their work and not something that is fundamental to their work. So having this quality mindset throughout the whole company is definitely one of the important pain points that they mentioned. Secondly, there's this the problem of once you have that mindset, people still might not be very fast with follow-up on actions that are required when some issues are arising, or training typically is problematic. You need to be constantly trained in procedures and processes that change over time. So it's not getting your training when you are a new employee, and once that's done, you're done. No, it's a continuous process in which you need to be retrained according to constantly changing processes and procedures as the company grows and changes, or the market or the product is trying to keep up. So making sure that people follow up in a timely fashion on all these quality actions is definitely also a challenge in continuous improvement processes. And then lastly is having the clarity. So even if you have the mindset, even if people want to follow up on these quality processes, there are quite a few, right? You have deviations, non-conformities that might be handled differently, complaints that might be handled differently, corrective and preventive actions that need to be logged, managed, implemented in a certain way. So internal audits, management review meeting, whatever is part of your whole quality system has a process to it. And employees typically don't do that on a daily basis. So when something pops up that you need to follow up on, having clarity on the process, how and when you need to follow up, is essential for people to feel comfortable and doing this as fast as possible. So you don't get behind with all these actions. So the clarity part is very important, and that's definitely where systems and software solutions can help, right? Because you're forcing the user through a very specific workflow, which makes it for them easy to understand and apply these quality processes in a very logical manner. So I'm very curious of these main challenges that I've discussed here. Which ones resonate the most with attendees here in the webinar? Maybe you can post it in the chat. So is it the first one, instilling quality mindset throughout the company? Is it the second one, timely follow-up on required actions? Or is it maybe the third one, clarity on when and how to apply the different quality processes? So which are the ones most important for you? If you can just post that in the chat, I'm very curious to know your response to that. So Dan, thank you. The third one, thank you, Dan. Don't be shy. I'm very curious to know your opinion here. I want to keep it interactive as well. Okay, Lena, timely follow-up is our biggest challenge at the moment. Thank you, Lena. Stefan says number 2. Thank you, Stefan. So timely follow-up was also the second. So I have one for the third, a few for the second, the first one. Yeah, thank you, John. Yeah. All right. So I have a little bit of everything. So thank you for your answers to that. With that, I would like to switch over to Amanda, who will explain a little bit the theory behind a continuous improvement framework, how to implement it, what it consists of, And later we will discuss how it was implemented at Shoebox and how Amanda is managing that part, right? So Amanda, over to you.
Sure. So continuous improvement is a cycle, and generally the best, in my opinion, the best way forward is to plan, to do, to check, to act. So with the plan stage of the cycle, you're going to establish your objectives, you're going to plan the processes, basically plan for change and identify any improvement opportunities. In the do, you're going to implement this plan and execute the process. So you're going to implement whatever training's been identified. In the check, you're going to check to determine if the change had the desired outcome. You're going to compare it against what the expected result was and what actually happened. And then moving forward to the act, I mean, if you're successful, you're going to implement it across the organization and across your processes. If it was not successful, then it would probably raise a corrective action where you would follow a structure on a root cause analysis. Why didn't it work? Why didn't you get the expected result, essentially, and then start the cycle again.
Okay, so yeah, it's a continuous cycle that you implement, but it never ends, right? It's ongoing at all times. All right, please go ahead.
So there are 7 QMS principles. Quality management system. There are 2 standards, ISO 13485 for medical devices and ISO 9001. Basically has the same mindset. So when you're talking about customer focus, organizations, they depend on their customers, and therefore they really need to understand what the current and future customer needs are and strive to meet the customer requirements and also to exceed their expectations. Leadership, establishes purpose and direction for the organization, and you want to maintain an environment where people can become fully involved in achieving these organizational objectives. Engagement of people. People at all levels are the essence of the organization, and full involvement enables their abilities to be used for the organization's benefit. Process approach. A desired result is achieved more efficiently when activities and related resources are managed as a process. And we move to continual improvement. The continual improvement of an organization's overall performance should be a permanent objective of your organization. Evidence-based decision-making. We got effective decisions that are based on analysis of data and information. And lastly, relationship management. The organization and its interested parties are interdependent. This includes supplier relationships. So a mutually beneficial relationship enhances your ability for both of you to create value in your system.
Yeah, so basically what you're saying is that with the first plan, do, check, act framework, you need to put in place all these different QMS principles, but you use the same framework for all of them, correct? Okay. Yep. All right. Sorry about that. This one, sorry.
So what is a quality management system? Well, it's a formalized system that documents your processes, your procedures, and your responsibilities to achieve your quality policies and your objectives. So it's a systematic approach to ensure consistency in your performance, and it supports continuous improvement. Having a quality management system also provides confidence to your customers that you can deliver a product or service that is safe and conforms to requirements. Next slide, please.
Yep.
So this kind of gives you kind of overview of ISO standards and how it feeds in information into your system, and how on the other side you have customer feedback and a feedback system that also provides some input to how you're going to do this plan, do, check, act cycle. It goes with a process approach. So you're constantly reevaluating your processes to ensure that they meet the needs of your QMS and create value for your customer. Having a quality management system reduces your risk of non-compliance, drives accountability, it improves your product quality and safety, and it basically optimizes your operational effectiveness.
All right. So yeah, the first thing that comes to mind, Amanda, with the thank you for this explanation. This is the theory behind how to implement the continuous improvement process, right? Shoebox is a fast growing medical device company. I think you told me that your employee, I don't know, number, I don't remember the number, but 50 something.
We're 100.
Sorry?
We're 100 employees.
You're 100 now, but you came in like 2 years ago.
At 70, we were 75 now.
75. So yeah, so it's more or less one new employee per month, right? So it's growing fast, and probably the way the company looked when you came in 2 years ago is very different. With 75 employees, it's very different to how it looks now with 100. So what were the pain points that you encountered in those 2 years to implement and maintain this whole continuous improvement cycle?
I definitely say firstly, at the beginning, not having a proper like process management tool, doing everything manually and by paper, like a paper-based QMS is not optimal. So we did bring on Scilife as our quality management system to manage our documents and control our documents, assign training, and a number of other useful QMS role responsibilities we've used through Scilife, which is simplified our life. So initially, I'd say the manual paper-based system was definitely a pain point. Most recently, I think because we're since the pandemic, we became a remote company where there's only 6 of us in the office. The remainder are all working from home. So being able to kind of organize and schedule meetings and stuff has become a little bit more of a challenge, just because, you know, everyone now has to communicate virtually, and finding time to break down issues and you know, meet regularly was initially a challenge. Other than that, I think the follow-ups, also the follow-up actions, we've definitely improved since going remotely with our structure. We have really good structure for our CAPA system, and I think that's really important in order to kind of establish a cadence and follow up and get things done on a timely basis.
Yeah. So with 75 employees 2 years ago, with a paper-based system, I mean, paper-based, if not everybody is at the office, it's virtually impossible, right? The paper needs to travel from desk to desk. So did that mean that that you went from completely on site to almost completely remote during the pandemic? So you were 75 people working at the office before?
Yes.
Wow, that's yeah, very big change, right? Yeah. So, and how is it working for Shoebox? I assume it's quite positive, but did you notice that not everybody is into remote working, for example? Did you see a lot of attrition with employees, people leaving, new people replacing them, or everybody accepted the change relatively easily?
Yeah, I think everyone was very easy with the change. A lot of people do prefer working from home. And it's proven itself to be, we're just as productive, we're just as efficient and effective. So it hasn't really hurt us too much.
Okay. If you would have still worked on paper just when the pandemic hit, then it would be definitely a huge challenge, right?
getting people to sign off on training and whatnot would be next to impossible that way. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
it's pretty much impossible that way.
Yeah, and signing off on kappa actions and deviations and all that. Yeah, for sure. Okay, what about having everybody on the same page in terms of this mindset, this quality mindset? Was it always there when you came in at Shoebox, or is that also something that needed some effort?
It needed some effort initially, but everyone's kind of grown into it, and we are all fairly obsessed with quality. So we work really well as a team, and we all understand what is required of us. Everything that we build, or it always has quality in mind.
And what did you do to instill this quality mindset? So was it just through the training, or did you do some other actions? How did you manage that?
We're a very transparent company as well. So when we have audits, for example, and they're very open. They're very open and on the table for everyone. So everyone
Okay.
is involved. We communicate any issues, so they understand the role of quality in our business.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you say audits, you mean internal audits then, or also
External audits as well.
external audits? Okay.
All audits, we have participation from the company.
Yeah. So you all receive these audits with an open mindset. We know things might be wrong. We try to do things as good as we possibly can, but we're always open to suggestions to improve. That's basically the mindset, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
not onboarding. They're also given like awareness, like training on what the quality management system means, what our regulatory requirements are. We definitely highlight that at the beginning of.
Yeah. So yeah, it's we also noticed it at Scilife. We were growing more or less with the same employee growth in the past 15 months, with one new employee per month, and it's all about involving them into the process, right? It's really not having these audits and only QA handle them and shield off the rest of the company. It's really no. You want to hear how this process works, you just involve the person, let the person explain, and then they say, oh, okay, this is how auditor asks questions, and this is the information that we need to come up with. So they really feel the seriousness of the whole matter, and want to prepare to show everybody that they're doing it appropriately, right? It's all about involvement and helping them to get involved. So how important is it for you, Amanda, that what we notice, for example, we're not a medical device company. You guys have both the hardware and the software part, I guess, right, in the company, but we are 100% software. So how important is it that all departments have this quality mindset and document their processes? I'm thinking about customer success, salespeople. I mean, they definitely document processes and train people, but doing that from a regulatory perspective, or even in a tool like a QMS, is not that logical for them. So do you somehow lower the bar for these types of departments, because maybe an auditor will not see them as critical to your product as obviously product development? Or are you just saying, no, the whole company needs to have the same level of quality, even if it's sales, marketing, or customer success, we don't care? So how do you think about that?
Well, we actually, one of our company values is to be quality obsessed. So when you come into this company, you're coming in knowing that this is one of our most important values. So every department takes quality very seriously. Just some departments are more heavily involved in quality than others. So we share the information, we train accordingly. There's periodic review of processes. We empower people to be involved in process changes, etc.
So it's really the same for every department. There is no difference. So into where the bar is in terms of quality. You expect the
Um,
same level for yeah, from salespeople as from engineering.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, we're trying to do the same, but it's challenging, right? You definitely need to convince them that it's important. What we noticed as a startup, when you're really small and you only have 1-2 persons in the department,
Mhm.
then they might not see the advantage. As soon as the department start growing with more people, then the managers themselves of each department say, okay, now I understand what you mean, because I need to explain the same thing over and over, right? Even if it's a sales process or buyer personas or marketing, and how we do, how we configure whatever, a Google ad or whatever, it doesn't really matter. Um, having that documented in work instructions, having a procedure illustrating the whole procedure, or the process in a visual way, and really putting in place the KPIs,
Mhm.
where they can actually find where and how and when are these tracked, is actually quite useful, because otherwise I'm just showing them systems and explaining the same things over and over. And typically, as you grow, these things make more sense to people, I think. I don't know if you notice the same, but that's definitely the case for
Definitely
Scilife.
matured. Like we've definitely
Mm.
grown over a course of time
Mm.
into a better quality mindset. Like maybe at the beginning, it was harder to get everybody on the same page, but
Yeah.
essentially now, more so because we have a more manageable QMS, it's a lot easier for people to access the information if they, the procedures, if they are unsure. But as a whole, we do refresher training. It's constant. There's always something going on that would
Mm.
increase their awareness of the importance of quality.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. So, and what are for you the most important tools within the quality system to make sure that this continuous improvement cycle is as optimal as possible? Well, what would you say are the most important tools for you?
Well, our EQMS firstly, and then we have feedback, customer feedback, post-market surveillance. We have our CAPA system, which is a very important tool
Mhm.
in managing potential nonconformances and nonconformances. Um,
Yeah, other things that come to mind that we also do, obviously, is internal audits.
mhm,
Um, yeah,
Management. Yeah.
management review. So internal audits, do you audit each process? How do you do that? Do you do one audit per process per year? More often, less?
Um, we cover our entire QMS over the course of a year. So we do break up sections into quarters, into our
Okay.
quarters, just to make it more well, feasible. It's okay to break it up as long as you cover the entire system over the course of a year.
Mhm.
Um,
How do you break it up, Amanda? So like core processes or department wise, or how do you
we
plan
break
that?
it up by sections of the standard.
Oh, okay.
So we'll take section 4 and 5 and do that, and whatever processes are applicable to that
Yeah.
section, and so on and so forth throughout the
Okay.
course of the year.
Okay.
Um, and internal audits are very important, and we definitely use those as opportunities for improvement as well.
Mhm.
Um, we do discover potential nonconformances and noncompliances in our processes as we're auditing. And I mean, it ensures that your QMS is working, or it's effectively implemented and
Mhm.
maintained, right?
So regarding internal audits, you're auditing then the other processes as QA, right?
Yes.
And who's auditing the QA process? Who's auditing you then?
We have an outsourced
Yeah, you outsource
auditor
it.
that
Okay.
audits what we cannot because it's we can't audit our own work.
That's it. Yeah. So you just, for that part, you have an external party that does the internal audit for you.
Correct.
And then I assume that you get your certification audit from the whatever regulatory body and surveillance audits every year, right?
Yep.
Correct. All right. So, and regarding the management review, you do that once per year or more often?
We do it semi-annually.
Okay.
Twice a year. Actually, no, sorry. We do it every quarter.
Okay.
Every quarter we have a management review, which is more than you need. You don't need to have
no, exactly.
A quarterly meeting, but it definitely, again, it keeps everybody's mindset on track. It keeps that what's required and what we strive to achieve on the table at all times.
Yeah, it gives you this cadence, right, of quarterly reviewing everything from a business and quality perspective, top down, and see that everything still works as the business needs. That's interesting. We don't do that often. We do once per year right now. But yeah, it's an interesting approach, even though from a regulatory perspective, it's not a requirement. I can understand how it helps you to have your continuous improvement process on track by checking that more often. That makes sense.
We're keeping tabs on our metrics, right? Our KPIs are, if we let it go for too long, then we may not catch a potential opportunity to improve on a process until, maybe we become non-compliant for some reason or
That's
another.
it.
So there's definitely bringing CAPAs and audit findings and customer feedback to the table on a regular basis.
Yeah,
it is, I think,
so
a good way.
Who attends the management review at Shoebox? That's
our leadership team. From top level management.
Yeah. And QA then.
And QA, yeah.
Okay, but not the department managers.
Well, the way our structure is, we have like a product management representative in there. There's a sales representative, there's a service representative, but they're all at the top level leadership. So directors, VPs of these departments are represented there.
Okay, so it's like what, maybe 7-8 people?
Oh, it's more like 12 to 15.
Okay, that's all right. Wow. Okay. And is that efficient? So we noticed that for a decent management review, we needed 2 days. I don't know if you do it every quarter, it's an expensive meeting, right? To have so many top level people in. How long does management review meeting take you guys?
Roughly an hour and a half to 2 hours. 2 hours.
Oh, really? Okay, that's not too bad. Wow, that's really quick.
We have a good structure. So structuring your meetings and inputting the data that you're going to be discussing within your presentation makes it faster, I think.
Okay, and probably everybody needs to come prepared with all the necessary data to the meeting, right? So the way we do it is it's almost like an internal audit format in which we go look into the different systems to find out. Let's look at customer feedback, and then we go into that system. We look at the charts, we look at customer satisfaction, we look at service level agreement, we look at uptime in relation to uptime guarantees from a contractual commitment. We look at manager meeting notes that they do on a weekly basis with their team. So going through all that data takes us a lot of time. So I guess that if you do it in 1.5 or 2 hours with so many people, that they already went through this previous to the meeting. Otherwise, it's impossible, right?
Absolutely. So we get the inputs from the departments we need, the inputs from that's going to be up to discussion to other departments that are not privy to this information right at the get-go. And then we populate all of that, and everyone has the opportunity to review what we're about to discuss before the meeting happens. So it's a nice, smooth process. Though there's work to go into it before the meeting happens.
That's it. Yeah, that's it.
When it does, and we're presenting it to everybody, it's very efficient.
Nice. Yeah, we should definitely talk more about this offline. I'm curious to know if there are more questions also from attendees about the management review meeting in particular, to see if they also do it as efficient as Shoebox or as inefficient as Scilife, because we need 1 to 2 days, right? But it's all about structuring the agenda and deciding what needs to be done before the meeting and what are you going to cover within the meeting. So I think there is the main difference. But okay, so I have more questions for you. I am going to do a quick time check. We have 22 minutes left. I don't want to steal away all the questions from the people. I'm reminding everybody that you can post questions in the Q&A section by using the Zoom bar. If any question comes to mind, feel free to already post it in there. We will go through these at the end of the webinar. So I'll make sure to leave time for that. But another question that comes to mind, Amanda, is as a software medical device company, have you noticed that, for example, development methodologies like Agile or Scrum somehow clash with this more rigid regulatory requirement? So we definitely notice that. I think that there are more and more medical device companies that have at least a part of software. And I think that 95% of companies are using an agile approach to software development. So I think it's quite a relevant question. So how does Shoebox tackle that?
Well, we do our best to build the regulatory affairs regulations into our agile methodology. And feature development is based on the similar inputs. So it's not an afterthought. It is basically built into the process. The regulatory mindset, like any regulatory requirements, are built within the process, and communication is absolutely key, to prevent frustrations and risks from each side. But yeah, we definitely have this in our minds every design review, every any cycle that we do in respect to our agile system is always keeping regulatory in the forefront of our minds.
Okay, the thing that we notice is that from an agile perspective, you want to understand user requirements, start drafting the user stories, and go develop. And then when it's developed, then you're going to demo it and then get feedback, right? The problem, if you need to validate according to GAM5, for example, the software solution, as we do for the whole Scilife platform, or you do for your medical device, there's this requirement of generating all this documentation, like the functional specs, design specs, config specs, and the tests of user requirements, the user acceptance tests, and all that. How far do you already write that out in relation to your user stories? Because if you do it too much, it becomes a waterfall methodology. If you do it too little, then you're not. You might not be compliant to GAM5, right? So then it's again an afterthought. You're doing all the documentation after the fact. So how do you get this balance?
Well, we have a very amazing software development team, which I'm not heavily involved with. So I can't really speak to how they put all their things together, but I do know that it is sequential and it's repeated. Risks are always reviewed, customer requirements versus regulatory requirements are always put into the changes. And then the level of testing that happens prior to releasing, it keeps quality and regulatory in mind before we hit that release button.
All right. Okay, so yeah, that's definitely the way it should work, right? So I'm hearing risk assessment is already done. Maybe you're not writing out all the functional and config specs yet, but definitely user requirements are there, and you are doing a risk-based approach, or so risk assessment of these user requirements according to regulatory requirements are then somehow mapped and accounted for. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, yeah, that's interesting. So you mentioned you have a great software development team. The other thing that we notice is that there is a huge difference between hiring people that come from the life sciences or medical device sector versus hiring people that are not coming from that space, right? So which is then a very big challenge. So is Shoebox really trying to hire only people that already come with this mindset because they know the space, or do you somehow put them through a different training to get them up to speed in terms of understanding all the regulatory requirements? I'm thinking about software developers, but not only software developers. We have seen the same challenges with salespeople. If they don't speak the same language as customers, then it's very, very hard to sell your solution. I'm thinking about marketing. If you don't understand the space and the market, it's very, very hard to get the messaging right to your to your potential customer. So yeah, I'm curious to know what Shoebox does from a hiring strategy perspective.
Well, I mean, we definitely want great people with experience, although we aren't restricted as far as I mean, I'm not involved with HR, but we do have several employees that did not come from regulated environments previously, and that's not what they're familiar with. So when we have a new hire, we scope their job function to what type of training, what training plan will be assigned to these people based on their job functions. And then again, all the open transparency we have throughout the company and on our all staff meetings, and the information that we share, an open book to everybody, it kind of again just kind of instills that mindset a little bit. And then we have refresher training, and anytime there's a change in a regulation, whether it's a software standard or an audiometry standard, or whichever the case is, we would develop training accordingly of what we felt was necessary to share.
Okay, and is that then, yeah, so I guess that then somehow helps with this whole culture, this quality culture that you try to instill, right? So it's basically through training, or are there other things that Shoebox does to make sure that they have this mindset, this continuous improvement mindset?
It's training, and it's involving them, empowering them to be part of the process. we collaborate across teams. So the discussion, like the words quality and continuous improvement, and like that's all we want. We are quality obsessed. We want to produce the best product for our customers, right? And meet all of their needs, exceed their expectations. Like that is our goal.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense. So yeah, we have 14 minutes left. I would like to go through some questions from the audience. One question here is, do you have a system in place to get customer feedback?
Yeah, actually, we so customer feedback for us can come in different ways. We have our customer support team, our account managers, our product managers. They all receive some sort of feedback, different kinds of feedback. We get complaints, potential software bugs, negative feedback, feature requests. So it all flows through a ticketing system. We have a ticketing system, so it gets assigned accordingly. It gets categorized. In the flow that we have it listed, if it's a complaint, it goes through this process. If it's a feature request, it goes through this process. And then we have like the complaint process. We talk about customer feedback, and post-market surveillance also is stuff that we need to monitor and maintain. We have to have we gather data from all sorts of places to discuss, and all of these become inputs to our management review, and make sure that we're meeting our objectives. We set out certain objectives to comply with our quality policy. So the customer feedback is important because we need to continuously improve and provide the best product we can that is safe and effective.
So how much would you say is customer feedback deciding the product's direction? A lot, right? Yeah.
A lot, yeah.
Yeah. The reason I'm asking is we notice the same. We have the same system as you described in terms of a ticketing system where everything flows through, and we separate between issues and feature requests, or just questions, right, to provide support. So regarding the feature requests, there are tens of feature requests per month. That we have this process in place. Every week we have a fixed meeting where we try to go through each and every question, and then customer success provides feedback to the user in question that asked for the feature, explaining if there's maybe a workaround, if there's another way to do what they want to accomplish, or if we're going to do it, in which version of the module in question the upgrade will happen, right? And more or less when. So that's a huge effort, but it definitely accounts for maybe 80 to 90% of product direction. Only we keep building new modules, and there it's really also our view and our strategy from a business and a market view. From partners and whatnot. So there's definitely this 10%, 15% that comes from another source, but all the rest is really feature requests from customers. So I think that for you it's the same thing, right?
Yeah, they get prioritized, they get reviewed. I mean, they have to be measured against what we can actually do, what if it affects or impacts our regulatory compliance, because we have to satisfy many different markets, and different markets have different requirements.
Totally.
So we need to measure all of those things depending on what it is that's being requested, right?
Yeah. Okay, I have a question here from Ed. What minimum size team does these processes make practical sense? Let me think if I understand it correctly. What size does a company need to be, or the team need to be, for these processes, this continuous improvement process, to be necessary? I think that's the question, Ed. Correct me if I'm wrong. Yes, exactly. Thank you, Ed. What would you say, Amanda? Obviously, if you're just starting out, you're a 3-person team. That doesn't make sense. Shoebox grew now to 100, more than 100 employees.
Yeah.
So yeah, any advice on when to implement this process? That's a good one.
When, I mean, as soon as possible. I think like for us, we have a fairly small quality team at the moment. We're only like 3 people, and we manage to cover a large territory of requirements per se. With a small team, it's not optimal. Obviously, having more resources, I think, would be more efficient, but that'll come as we continue to grow. But when, I mean, you have to evaluate what your business needs are and your customer needs. Like, are you going to implement? Are you talking implementing a quality management system, or some other process?
Yeah, the thing is, if you are putting on the market a medical device, you will need to have a continuous improvement process in place, even if you're just 2 persons. You need to have your quality system set up, otherwise you will not get certified. So that's definitely a requirement. And then the team size doesn't really matter, but you need to have it documented, written down, and actually do it, right? And show some proof that you actually do what your processes say that you do. So I think it's not about how large should the company be before you implement this. It's really from a business need perspective. If you need the certification to go for the go-to-market strategy, and look there. So obviously, for a lot of medical device companies, there's a lot of R&D at the beginning for quite some time. But as soon as you want to go to market, it definitely needs to be in place. So yeah. Okay, thank you, says Ed. That is helpful. I don't know if it's a question, Gabriela. I see here a paragraph that you typed in the chat. In our company, we have a technical writer who assists continuously the developers with documentation, so developers can focus on development. Okay. A Jira workflow has built-in control tools to go into the next step only if regulatory requirements have been fulfilled. Okay, so Gabriela says it's just a comment. So yeah, for software, thank you for that. That's definitely interesting. I have some more questions here. Petra says, what do you do when a colleague initiates an improvement? What do you do when a colleague initiates an improvement? So when a colleague initiates an improvement, I guess that means that you need to go through a change control. Otherwise, you're implementing a change, even if it's an improvement, in an uncontrolled way. So if a colleague wants to implement an improvement, the colleague should create a change request first. Would you agree to that, Amanda?
Absolutely. You absolutely need to go through that process so we can do the appropriate impact assessments, risk assessments before implementing a change.
Cool. We definitely agree on that one. I hope that's helpful, Petra. All right, then I have another question from Dan. Wait, I have a few from Dan. How are the steps we can implement in order to encourage continuous improvement in a quality system? Is this just the responsibility of the quality manager? Yeah. So what are the steps we can implement in order to encourage continuous improvement in a QMS? And is this just the responsibility of the quality manager? What would you say to that, Amanda?
I'd say no. Everyone needs to be moving towards the same goal. Everyone needs to be involved. Continuous improvement is something that needs to be revisited regularly. And it's not just the quality manager's responsibility. Everyone needs to be quality obsessed. Essentially.
Yeah, that's it. So it's absolutely not responsibility of quality only. You need to instill this quality mindset, this quality culture throughout the whole company, so that everybody understands the importance of quality from a regulatory perspective, and then help you to. I mean, in the end, we don't we don't implement a quality system just because regulation tells us so, but because we want to keep improving everything that we do on all levels throughout the whole company, right? So that's why the quality management system is put in place, and that's why laws and regulations required it, because they know that if you do that, you're constantly improving your company, your product, and it lowers the risk that you put something on the market that doesn't work, and that creates a problem with patients. That's why in life sciences it's mandatory, and in other sectors it's not, right? But in the end, it's all about making sure that everybody understands that it's important to do that. So how do you encourage continuous improvement? I think what I noticed at Scilife is through training, and what I also noticed, it's not enough to just have them go through passive training. What I mean is that if you have your processes and procedures and work instructions in place, and you have new employees or existing employees just read that, and they just check the box and sign off electronically. You have your training record right on file, and the auditor comes in. Oh, okay, everybody's trained. It's not enough, because then what you notice is that somebody needs to do a root cause analysis, and they don't know how to approach it because they read the document, but they didn't really understand it. What we're seeing is that the QA department needs to do this extra effort to organize internal training sessions. I don't know if you guys do that, Amanda, at Shoebox, but we are starting to do that now since for a while, in which QA takes a process or a procedure that we typically notice or during operations or during an internal audit that some people might not have understood, and then we just do a company-wide training about change control, or we do a company-wide training about kappas. How do you create a kappa, and if you need to do a kappa action, how does that work? A risk assessment, how does FMEA work, right? And do a explanation of the document that already exists. Doesn't matter, but you need to explain it. You need to have people ask questions. Are you guys doing that at Shoebox?
Yeah, we do go over QMS, like quality management systems, and corrective preventative action in a more personal setting. It's not just a read and sign. We have a presentation, we speak to people, we go over it so that people have the opportunity to ask questions, etc. And then training, I mean, we need to measure the effectiveness of the training sometimes, right? It's like reading something does not mean you understand it fully. It doesn't mean that you can apply it. But we often set goals, and then we have like performance reviews where we'll, go over, did we completely understand what we were aiming to accomplish, and about QMS and all the regulatory requirements. If not, then additional training plans would be put in place to make it more clear. Quizzing people, doing quizzes, something as simple as that, helps demonstrate their understanding. And then, of course, we are constantly in communication with each other.
Yeah,
pretty open.
Yeah, and then you also notice, right, that maybe, but yeah, in a growing company with more than 100 people, you can only talk to so many, right? And I, of course, I'm all about efficiency. If the QA department needs to explain the same thing 3 times in a week, something is wrong, right? You better do again a training and record it. And next time somebody asks the same question, point to the recording. Hopefully it solves it, and otherwise come back for follow-up questions. So yeah, that's our approach to it. All the internal trainings that we do company-wide are now recorded. So we keep a library of those, and we update our training in Scilife with these recordings so that they are also the most up-to-date. I don't know if you do that as well, Amanda.
I've started making some training videos for certain things to kind of
Okay.
one like a visual of what they're looking for, more procedural, like using certain platforms, how to use a platform, like how to use Scilife.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, giving them like the ins and the outs and showing them things they may not have noticed otherwise.
Yeah. I'm afraid we're a few minutes over time already. I have more questions. Yeah, so we cannot address them all. But again, I want to be respectful of everybody's time. We need to close the webinar. I would like to thank Amanda for your participation, your clear explanation, and your help with this. I think it was very interesting. So thank you for that. Thank you all attendees for being here, being interested in what we have to say and explain. I hope it was useful for you. Thank you for your great questions. Any questions that we weren't able to answer will be answered over email. So yeah, you're very welcome, and talk to you soon again. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you.